you know, guys don't have to try to make me feel good. You know what I'm saying? Look, I ain't trying to. I don't worry about it. I don't lose sleep about it. You know what I'm saying? I think it's funny more than anything.
For
you know
sure.
what I'm saying? Like because I did have a pretty prolific skate career. But think about it. Like there was so much pressure on me on that DC video. What Danny was doing, what everybody was doing, Stevie and Kalis and like Van England's like prime major part, like all this stuff. Like I started thinking like, okay, what can I do to try to even be on this level? And that's what led me to even come up with the idea of creating the skit that became Robbin' Big in the first place, right? It was really trying to figure out something that would be equally as powerful for my part to make up for the fact that I knew I wasn't going to have the skating that compared to everybody else that was in this video and how big it was.
That was your thinking behind that.
That was, yeah.
Interesting.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and
to have it
like,
forecasted that way and then have everything kind of just work out.
But you could have never expected it.
No, not at all.
Right? Because it was done out of this sort of like, got to come up with something that's really funny, you know what I mean? And God bless Greg Hunt, you know, for you know, really creating it, right? And then, you know, all he did was like call a local security office in San Diego and say, hey, we're looking for like a big guy that's kind of fun and lovable, but intimidating, but lovable. Oh, we got the perfect guy. That it was as much as that.
Really?
And then we just met up and shot a scene together, and
That's so
it was like, how you doing? Good to meet you. Like nothing more, nothing less, but it was like instant like chemistry of like, oh, this is my guy, you know, and
So there was no vetting, no like
none. We did not meet with any other person.
Yeah,
We
that's
didn't
supposed to
even
happen,
like, you know what I'm saying? We didn't even like, it wasn't like he talked to different people. It was like, I got the perfect guy. He showed up. We just paid him like his security rate. You know what I mean? To even be there in the first. And that's the OG one where I've like sprained my ankle and he's carrying me and like there's some of the very first stuff we shot together that we had never even met at the time. You know what I mean?
Did he even know how to focus support at that point? I
No,
mean,
we had to pre-break that one.
Yeah.
We had to pre-break it because he kept like trying to do it, and even right there, go back. Even right there, it was already broken, and I had to stomp on the truck, so it still looked like I was.
you had to stomp.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying.
You
So I
can
had to
tell
stomp
riding
on
up
the
to
back.
it. You can tell right up to it's a little bent in the middle, right?
Yeah, so I had already had like broken it before that time. You know what I mean?
That's sick.
Yeah.
That's so funny, man. It's so funny how just some things are just
it's meant to be,
kismet
bro.
or whatever you want to call it, just meant to be.
Were any of those
Yeah.
skits like just impromptu shit? Like he like ran and tackled someone, shoved someone off like.
Yeah, the guy he ran and tackled was like my super good friend, and
okay.
eventually went on to be my manager.
Okay.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
Kind of
like
beneficial.
yeah, like he was just like the homie. Like it was everything was set up on purpose. You know,
Okay,
there except for some of the interactions, the more mellow ones. You know. But fundamentally, it was this idea of like, you know what the streets are like and security guards are like, and how funny would it be if you just had a security guard talk to a security guard? You know what I mean? Like that was like the other side of it that that made it like really like simply understood. And then the X factor was our chemistry. Then you got to think like, me and him we began to see, like when we would go out and hang out together, how the world would react. And so we just started living life together, and playing up on sort of the juxtaposition of us in all different types of places. Like one time me and his, two best friends, Zeus and Bam Bam, we all went to Vegas together, and I had just broken my arm, and we all just got in suits and we're just cruising around Vegas, right? And so everybody just assumed I was some super famous, like something, because like, why does he have these three giant dudes? And so we would just get access to everything. And there was like a Roy Jones Jr. fight at the MGM, and I just walked straight up to the person asking tickets. I said, if you don't mind, we're just going to walk in. And they're like, go right ahead. And so I walk all the way down, all of us, down to like where the empty row of seats, like in the fourth row. And I said, if you don't mind, we're going to sit right here. And they're like, oh, go right ahead. And like just assumed, because this guy, this is Vegas. This guy is like something, you know what I mean? And we sat there and watched for free by just making it look like I was someone super special, because I must be. We're all in suits, and I'm flanked by 3 giant security guards, and girls were coming up to me, hey, do you have a girl? Like,
No way.
Can I give him my number? It's like, he must be like, that was the super, we were like, whoa, man, this is super fascinating, like sort of power of perception experience. Jeez. And then we just ended up doing, for fun with DC, doing the Gumball together. And then they shot a documentary about the Gumball, and that documentary is the director of the documentary was like, man, you guys should do a show. And I was at the time like, I don't have time to do a television show. It's not something I would ever want to do. And, because at that point I was really focused on designing shoes for DC. Like, I had designed and developed the side hustle where I'm designed and got every shoe that I got picked, I got a royalty on. And at one point I had like 35 shoes.
Damn.
That's really where I made a lot of money in the beginning. Without anybody really even knowing
On
it.
the low,
Yeah. And so I was like, man, this is so good. I want to focus on this. And it just seemed like a bit of a hassle. But then Jeff Tremaine saw that show, saw the documentary, and was like, these guys should do a show. Then when it was Tremaine and Jackass and Big Brother and someone I knew, then the conversation, really changed. But, my entire trajectory into television was because of Ruben Fleischer and Jeff Tremaine, and really Ruben, because he shot the documentary, and then then really showed it to Jeff, and then really drove this thing forward. And the ironic thing is, Ruben directed the pilot, and then MTV fired him because they didn't think he should direct anymore. And of course, he went on to direct Zombieland and Venom. He became like one of the biggest directors in the world. But back then, they're like, no, you're not. You can't do this. You're not a director. You know what I mean?
That's crazy to me. Well, it makes sense though with the Tremaine factor, because we're skateboarders. He speaks our language. You can relate to him. You trust him. But like having that one interaction, just hiring a security guard, but then staying in touch with him. Like, how did you have the foresight to even like get his number and stay in touch with him and go to Vegas with him? Like that seems very bizarre to me. That seems very bizarre.
Man, why do you got to make it be so weird? No. Look.
You know what I'm
Rather
saying?
than just like, hey, let's connect something simple. This guy makes it sound like I got my hands behind my back. I'm hey, do you want to maybe exchange numbers and hang out sometime?
No, it's just like a skit. You know what I mean? Look, that's so funny.
But I think it's a testimony. Me and him just hit it off.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And then we just started hanging out and doing all types of stuff together, right? So, and then when the video blew up, then it was like, us together was this really fun thing too, for like, going on autograph signings and tours and different like little adventures together. It became this really fun sort of thing. And then we went and did that Gumball together, and then it was like, hey, this may turn into a television show. But you got to think, man, it's like we shot that. It took 9 months before they even said they would shoot the pilot, then shot the pilot, and then it was like, it was like 2 years before it ever aired. You know what I mean? So it was like a 2-year gap of like, is this even going to work? Should we even be on TV? And is it even going to happen? But again, for me, in that same 2 years, I kept seeing what was happening on the retail side with BAM's product. Right. And so that's why, I renegotiated with Alien, said, I was getting 5 G's a month at the time, and said, I'll take a $2,500 salary if you give me $5 and $7 a board instead of $2 and $3 a board. Right. And Chris Carter was like, absolutely. Right. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what? Yeah. And then
Before everything happened, not to cut you
Before,
off.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I went and did a deal with just betting on, man, if this thing turns into some BAM level of sales, like I want to get the royalties up. And then I negotiated, since I was so deep in designing shoes, instead of picking one of the pro models that I liked the most, I did a deal with DC to get a 10% royalty instead of a 5% royalty on like the Stan Smith, like super clean mainstream shoe. And have it be 10%. And then the show came out and I had like the mainstream shoe in the mall. Then I had the boards and I just made, millions off of that shoe and then made, hundreds of thousands, off the board sales. But immediately right out the gate, like every single one of those deals that I did for royalties and products, like that show was on the air for like, 2 months and all of them exploded. You know what I mean?
I mean, that show took off.
Yeah.
Everybody loved it. When you first were doing the show and it was a done deal, you had to start filming and everything. Was there any doubt in your mind of like, oh my God, now I'm going to be on TV. How are people going to receive this? Like the skateboarding community, like, oh my God, I'm really putting myself out there with this.
No.
Like, was there any?
No. As you can imagine, I've never really, I try to walk the line and keep it real, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm never going to be overly concerned on what the bitterest industry in the history of the world. You know what I'm saying? The bitterest group of human beings in the history of the world on whether or not. Now, obviously, I got to control the narrative from the very beginning,
Gotcha.
and I controlled the story. Versus because we look at the tale of two worlds, right? Robin Big versus like Life of Ryan.
A lot of people don't have control
where
over
he had
anything.
no control and it drove him into no man's land versus like
Exactly.
me having total control, and it was born in skateboarding, right? But yeah, I did I have fear that it would not work? Probably that the most. I think when we shot the pilot, I watched the first cut of the pilot and I left the room and laid down in the grass and wanted to cry because I'm like, this is literally the worst thing I've ever watched.
Oh, wow.
And this is never going to make it. So, all that energy and sort of forward thinking, sort of hope, like, oh, I'd renegotiate all these deals. Like this thing's going to be big. Like I'm going to like have this like entirely new platform. Like it was the worst thing I'd ever seen because the problem is Jeff was like not a TV producer. Jeff made Jackass. And Jackass was like, welcome to Jackass. I'm Johnny Knoxville. This is like the taser. You know what I mean? Like there wasn't storytelling and developing. And the network knew that there was something in here because keep in mind, when we went in and pitched Robin Big, the show was called Best Friends. And we shot this little mini version of me and him and we brought the song in, People Let Me Tell You About My Best Friend. And so they would not buy that. They were like, no, you're the star. Like, you're the one that wrote this whole idea. Like, you're the pro skater. Like, you have this whole thing. And so what they picked up was Rob Dyrdek's Rules to Success. And that was the pilot that we shot. And the number one rule is always surround yourself with good people. And that was Big Black. That's how it was introduced. But the initial show was Rob Dyrdek's Rules to Success. It was fully scripted. It was completely scripted, and when we shot like the opening scene, there was like 10 executives in my living room watching monitors while they filmed us on giant cameras, and the opening scene was supposed to be like a discussion about like the nut, like I was supposed to be hungover, so I was like had this fake blender, and we were like we were putting Tums in the blender because I'm so hungover, some fake scene, and as we're talking, like we start talking about being in prison and him saying, oh, I'd get you if you were in prison. I said, I gotta tell you what, you ain't never catching me in prison. You know what I mean? And so it just immediately went off the script into the rails of like, no, I could beat you in a foot race. You could not beat me in a foot race. Right. Like it just went immediately off script into like, then it was like, oh, we should film the foot race. So then it's like the naturalness of what we were creating was starting to shine through it, but in the initial edit it was trying to fit it into the scripted show. And so the head of MTV knew there was something special here, and then they brought in Shane Nickerson, who was the story editor on the Newlywed Show, and to be like, can you pull the story out of this? And then he did an edited version where he's like, no, this is just them two. This is a buddy comedy of two best friends. And so when he did an edit of just me and him, and got rid of all the ancillary characters, and it was just the story of me and him in this more best friends lens, that they were like, okay, that's the show. And then that's what they eventually picked up and became Robin Big. Yeah.
Wow, what a journey.
Yeah, it was just, and keep in mind, that's 2 years.
Yeah,
for that
2
to come
years
to life.
And then, but when it hit, boy, it was like, man, I was famous overnight.
Right.